Okay, so every time I do this, I like to be interactive. I'm happy with a whiteboard. Whiteboards are cool. All right. Camera rolling. Got it. All right, so my name is Yeves Perez. I'm co-founder and CEO of Work B&B. And I consider myself a very lucky guy because I had been exposed to a career of marketing and branding before I became a tech founder, which really prepared me for distribution. That's why I feel so blessed. I'm a distribution specialist. Like I eat, breathe, sleep, moving product, okay? And one thing that I've noticed about a lot of tech founders is that they're overly obsessed on either the product or they're obsessed with raising capital. They're like they fall into two parts. And I'm like, well, what about selling the damn product? Like, where's the obsession there? Because, if you think about it, your product dies if it doesn't get adopted. And what we've seen this year, like I said out there, is we saw 3,000 companies shut their doors because of adoption. We saw 3,000 companies, and maybe, let's say, I didn't do the math, but let's say 75% of them actually raised capital. So the investors are looking for a home run, a nice, great return. But then they were like, well, shit, you failed on the adoption. So now the investors are pissed off, and now they're looking at the new founders, and they're saying, well, what are you guys going to do differently? And I say, the best thing you can do right now at this period of time in history is you got to get really good at brand marketing, okay? Now, brand marketing is stupid different than what we know traditional marketing to be, okay? Now, I can tell you for a fact, I know this to be true because of my mom. My mom used to be in the mortgage business, and what she used to do back in the day was she used to print flyers, and she would have me as a kid go and put these flyers in your door jamb at your front door. And that was like my after school, training to be in business was to go and get out there in the world and hit the pavement, right? And I don't know if anybody's had to do that kind of thing before, pass out flyers or whatever, but it teaches you about numbers, right? I need to reach 1,000 people to get this many to act, and then this and this and this, and it just becomes like a number game. Whereas in brand marketing, it's about feeling. What feelings do you create? Okay? When these people go to sleep at night, they remember how you made them feel, okay? And I don't know if anybody watched this movie. It just recently came out about Nike. Did anybody watch this movie? Okay, what was so great about this movie is that it takes place at a very specific time in history when Nike was already $1 billion company. So it wasn't like back when they were first selling shoes out of the trunk of the guy's car. But it's like they were at a period of time where they weren't really growing anymore. They weren't getting any ground. And that's the thing. Being a founder is like this marathon of growth where it's like you're never really going to be satisfied unless you're still growing. And all your investors are never going to be satisfied unless you're still growing. So you could have a lot of success on maybe let's say the beginning that 0 to 1 phase where you made your first million and you're like, okay, well, how do I make my first 10 now? How do I get to 100? How do I get to 1 billion? And then even there, you could still lose your way. But at least with brand, you could stay in this flow of making people feel a certain thing. But in order to achieve that, you have to do something really out of the box, okay? Now, in one of my other classes, I talked about personas and what personas are and how that's part of product market fit. Is like, am I reaching the right person, okay? And what I talked about in that particular class is you have to talk to a lot of people to figure out your ideal persona. In fact, it's really great to like almost create like an artificial persona where it's like, okay, like this particular guy that I'm selling to or woman that I'm selling to, this is what she likes to drive, this is what she likes to eat, this is where she spends her time, this is what she reads. And the more you get obsessed with that persona, you get to dive in a little bit more and get more insight, right? Whereas in brand marketing, growth is like, it just breaks like all those barriers. And this is where the term psychographics comes into play. Where it's like, okay, you can have these personas, but what do these people dream about? What do they want to become? That's huge. That's actually massive, because if you really think about this, if this brand helps you achieve a little bit of that, then you are going to capture that person and captivate that person to where they are hanging on for anything next you do. Anything, right? Like, I mean, it blows my mind how people will wait outside in the cold for something. Right? Like freezing cold weather. They'll wait in line, so sit out and they'll camp out. It doesn't matter if it's a shoe or a phone or whatever, you know? It's also powerful when people are willing to pay a holding deposit or a down payment deposit. That's a great example of brand power, right? Another great example is word of mouth. I think that's the magic one. That's the one that doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't get enough light. So I talk about it a lot because I want Vegas to be the shit. Like, that's my goal in life. Like, I love this town. This town's been very good to me, and I'm like, wouldn't it be crazy if the next big mega brands were from Vegas? Beyond gambling, you know, beyond sports, but tech. What if the next big mega brands were from Vegas? That would be awesome. Like think about it. Like, people all around the world wearing a shirt or, you know, or they're talking about a brand that's based in Vegas, right? Now, what does that do? That accelerates typically a business to the point where they can barely handle the growth. Like, they're growing so fast because the word of mouth is going so nuts that people are just like, yo, like, we need to hire. And it has really great effects. You know, a lot of kids from UNLV get hired, or a lot of people relocate here because they want to work for these companies, right? But I've noticed like this trend when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm seeing a founder post like this news update that they're shutting down their business. I've noticed this trend. I'll see the post. It typically reads really sad too. It's like, unfortunately, I'm letting everybody know today that I've decided to shut down my business after 3.5 years. You know, we just couldn't make it work. We didn't have product market fit. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. And I would go and I would look at the company. And here's one sign that I would notice that you could see the writing on the wall. Number one, the company hadn't posted in a while. Like literally hadn't posted in a while. Like you look at like the last few posts, they were like well over a month or two ago. Like it was like that defeating that they were just like, we're not even going to try. Okay. But then two, what I also noticed was that there was like some sort of announcement over a year ago that they were doing really well. One in particular that I'm going to use for an example, this company 1 year ago had raised $4.5 million and made a huge announcement, okay? What does that have to do with somebody's dreams? If that's all you really want to talk about is the money that you raised, what does that have to do with me as your customer? Nothing. Not one damn thing. So fundraising announcements are actually just part of a really old way of thinking. It's like, well, I'm going to make an announcement because we did something cool and we want to look cool because we want to fit that tech world, you know, where, you know, we show up to the conferences and everybody congratulates us for raising. Oh, wow, congratulations. All right. But what good did that do for you in a year? It went out of business, right? It didn't do shit. What makes a difference is the difference that you make in people's lives, okay? Because people want success. They don't want you to just succeed. They want you to help them succeed, okay? So you actually have to ask questions that you're typically not asking your customers right now. And I'm gonna just ask anybody here with a tech company, okay? When was the last time you asked a customer, like, what do they want to become? Okay.
We did a focus group.
Okay. What do they tell you?
What they want out of the system.
Well, okay, so you're talking about the product, though.
Correct.
But I'm just talking about out of their life. Like,
Yeah, of course.
do they talk about their retirement plans? Do they talk about, you know, because again, like I'm thinking like, again, like what people define success to be is typically like the stuff that your product actually doesn't necessarily do, right? Like you're a pathway to that success for them, right? But again, it's like, what's the end result for them? What does that look like, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you asked me during the interview. So for me, when we interview our members, I always ask them, what does life look like for you with 10 hours back a week? And that means to them more time with their kids, more time to spend on, for them acquiring a company or whatever it is.
Right.
More time and space to be focused on the things that matter most to them.
Right. And in a lot of cases, we still don't really blow that up bigger. There's a chance, because like 10 hours a week, right? More time with the kids, but it's also like taking them further, making sure that you can make it to their graduation, making sure that you can, go on vacation and make these lifelong, memories, right? I can make it to their wedding or help pay for the wedding. I can retire their parents, right?
So
So you're saying quality of life versus monetary?
Really, because it's like we're in a difficult cycle. We're in a difficult cycle. And here's what we don't know. We don't know what's going to like happen first next year. Okay? Let me just qualify that. Did anybody predict what was going to happen with Silicon Valley Bank? Anybody? Did anybody see that coming? Okay? Like, it just felt like the bottom dropped out. I mean, it felt like, I remember few nights before the announcements, people were tweeting out pictures of people standing outside of the bank trying to get their money out. And I was like, oh, that looks like a bank run. And I was like, oh, man, what if the bank goes out and then, they can't, make payroll? I was like, oh, shit, this could get really ugly. And it got ugly. It really did. It got super ugly. I remember 2008. Who remembers? Right? Man, that felt like a kick in the mouth. I mean, my mom and dad, lost their home, foreclosure. Okay? But what we can see on the horizon is pretty weird. Like, for example, commercial real estate is about to take a huge shit. Now, we know what residential real estate looks like when it takes a huge shit, but we don't know what commercial real estate looks like when it takes a huge shit. What is that going to do? I don't know. So right now, like, I'm constantly thinking about, I need to hang on to every customer for dear life. I need to do what I can to, like, figure out, like, what are their dreams and tell that story. Okay? Now, storytelling is just a remarkable thing, but in the world of brand, it's kind of like you get to be like a kid with Play-Doh. You get to like make some things like that don't really make sense. It's kind of like art a little bit. But as long as they like it and they talk about it, you are going to have people recruit new customers for you. Okay? And it'll be at a rate that you're just not used to. You're just like, wow, like it's just flowing in. Okay? Now, where do you start though? Where do you start? So, has anybody seen like typical go-to-market strategy framework? Has everybody seen that? Okay, you can find them all online. There's a bunch of them that have it. But it's typically, like similar framework to product market fit. It's like, what is the product? What is the avatar? The person, right? And what's the channel? So, product, channel, okay, and persona, avatar, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is really like something here. But when you think about, again, how do I measure if I have a product? There's one question you can ask your customer, okay? Or, I'm sorry, a brand. How do you measure if you have any brand value? And this question is really challenging to ask people because it's basically like something that you should kind of be afraid of because it feels like whatever the answer is going to be, it might be, you're getting your ass handed to you. But how would you feel if you were not able to use my product again? How would you feel? Like, that's a really interesting question to ask people. If you were never able to use my product again, would you be devastated? Would you not really care? Like, there's a lot to unpack there. Go ahead.
a shopping center. So they're building, like they're engaging with that customer now so they can prepare them for the close and then kind of shift them to another store that sells those type of products. But they're doing that right now.
Yeah. Now, it feels like a little late, right? It feels late. But again, shit is great when the economy's great. I mean, that's just how it is. Shit is great. Like, people are trying all new things. They're spending lots of money when shit is just great. We call it the boom time, right? But then there's a down cycle, right? And in the down cycle, it is kill or be killed. It's rough. People just lose all kinds of confidence. They could just lose confidence because, you're not talked about in TechCrunch, or you're not talked about in this or that or whatever. Like, there's vanity metrics that build confidence and things like that. But again, here's what's great about building a brand. What's great about building a brand is something called the fringes. The fringes is these folks that typically get ignored, where they're just like, nobody really cares about me, and they don't care about my dreams or my thing, and then all of a sudden they find you, that one that cares, right? And then you build kind of like a cult following, where it's just like they just ride for you. But you also still have to figure out, like, what is riding? What is riding? What is riding for you look like? Okay? And I'm kind of going through this right now. One thing that I'm noticing about people who want to ride for me at WorkBnB is they want merch. They're like, I want a shirt. And I was like, let me dive into this a little bit more. Like, I mean, I'm not in the clothing business. I don't see myself making merch and putting it up on the website. But what's the value in this? Well, one thing that I noticed is that if you're a host of Airbnb, for example, do you know you can't buy a shirt? You can't buy a shirt that has the Airbnb logo on it. They don't make it. They don't give it away. They don't do that. And I'm like, all right, well, people have a lot of pride in being part of Airbnb, but they don't have a way to express it. So I started making some merch and just started giving it away. And I started having people send me photos of them, wearing their WorkBnB merch, And they're like, yo, I have people coming up to me and asking me about WorkBnB, and I just promote the hell out of you. And I see it in the web signups. Like, I mean, I got one today. I was chilling in a Kurt's class, and I'm looking at my phone, and I got this guy that filled out the form, signed up, and he said, hey, I'm inquiring your WorkBnB services in the Boise area. We have a project where we need housing for the next 3 months, and we're needing places for 3 workers. Please contact us immediately, blah, 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 right? Now, I don't run any ads in Boise. I don't run any. It's the word of mouth that's going around, right? It's that word of mouth. So I'm like, man, this is pretty exciting. Like, I want to keep this up. I want to make this part of my strategy in 2024, where I'm focusing on psychographics. I want to create a cult following where I'm talking to the people who are on the fringes, the other brands are ignoring. It's not just about product. It's not just about the channel or the persona. It's about what does success look like for them. Now, one of the things that I'm doing to this is I'm doing what other people are not doing, okay? Other people create content that's either about them or it's about like their product, specifically about the product. But I literally took this word dream pretty seriously, where my content team and I, we have this storyboard about people having a daydream, and then they kind of like wake up in their daydream, and we kind of like drop some messaging about pursuing that dream and achieving that dream and all that type of stuff. But we figured out, like, what does that persona look like? We put together some, diverse group of people to represent that. And we're going to run it on socials, like, all year. It's just a bunch of people having daydreams and about them, pursuing their dreams, right? We never mentioned the product one time. Not one time. Now, who other brands have done that? Well, Nike does that. They don't show a shoe, right? There's a lot of brands that do this type of stuff, right? Nike wants you to pursue greatness. Greatness. So it's like, what are we helping people achieve, Go ahead, you had a question?
Yeah, so it sounds like, so you're saying aligning the unmet need of a customer that you can...
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily just an unmet need or a need, but I would just say, again, like, let's just say, I'm going to say something like really kind of out there, but like, let's say, you have this clothing brand. I'm going to say a clothing brand, okay, just for the sake of like dumbing this example down. But let's say you have a clothing brand, and like the people that you kind of associate with in this particular company or whatever, they have an obsession to space, right? And just going to space. Like, they just want to be the generation that goes to space, right? Well, okay, well, if you tell that dream over and over and over and over, and they associate your brand with going to space, you build a cult following, right? It's just like, you might have like a huge convention one year, like what they used to do with Star Trek, and everybody's like doing all the weird hand signals and acting like they're aliens, right? Because they have this fantasy of like achieving this next big thing. But think about like Nike. Greatness is a little bit of a fantasy too. There's a lot of athletes that wear Nike and they don't achieve shit. They dream about it, but the work that it takes to get to that dream is insane, right? And there's a lot of failure along the way. But as people, we get joy out of the journey, not necessarily the destination. So we have to have something that we shoot for, and we get a lot out of the journey to get there, right?
And creating community.
Right.
Process.
So thinking about that journey that's the obsession is what I'm trying to get to. What does that journey look like? How can I tell that story of the journey? How can I make it to where when you think about this dream and the journey, you think about us. You just go like, yeah, they got it. And that takes a lot of work. But I'll tell you what takes more work. Direct marketing takes more fucking work, bro. It is a stupid grind that will break you because you don't see results fast enough. I don't know who's ever been a part of a direct marketing machine where you're just like either cold calling. Has anybody done cold calling? What did that do to your mental?
It really elevated me. I'm kidding, it was horrible.
Right. Sucks. Right? Like, what did it do for you?
Yes, I mean, I think, Kirk said this in one of his sessions, after you've had 100 cold calls, you know a lot more about what you want to say to people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but again,
Painstaking.
I'm just saying as far as like how it changes you in a way. You're more cynical. Maybe you're quick to anger.
Yeah.
You know, you're not friendly to be around when you're in that grind mode. Like, don't talk to me for an hour after I'm off work, okay?
And you're also a part of the gear, because I worked in one, and being a new person, I was dialing and calling, and then if I got somebody that says yes, we were told, put them on hold, and then holler, closer!
Right.
Because you're just a part of that big old...
You're part of a machine. And now you got to rely on this person to get paid. And you're praying to God they don't screw it up. I'll tell you the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life, or actually seen in my life, okay? Because I used to sell cars, okay? Shittiest job ever. I hated this job. But I'll never forget this. This guy who had like the record of sales every month, month over month, he was selling like 40-something cars a month. I mean, this guy was crushing it. I was new, and I'm thinking, you know, as long as I look clean and I'm nice to people and I'm honest, I'm going to do great. Yeah. And I'm getting my ass handed to me. I'm like, everybody's like, no. And then, you know, my manager is like, listen, you need to shadow this guy. Okay, so I shadow this guy. And this guy comes in, pretty, you know, well-off guy, you know, got a nice Rolex and looks cool, and you know, we're sitting down, we're talking about a car. Now, mind you, we're not like a high-end car dealership. We're talking about Honda, okay, a Honda dealership, okay. So there, you know, we didn't have like luxury cars, but anyway, this guy, you know, was looking to buy a car for his daughter, and the guy's, you know, selling him. And he was like, listen, I don't want to waste your time. I've got other shit to do. Listen, I'm going to drop the price to this right now. Can you please just fucking sign so I can go? And the guy was like, well, listen, you know, I really appreciate you doing that for me, but I need to go back and talk to my wife. And he fucking slams his hand on the door, on the desk. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean you got to talk to your wife? Are you a fucking man or not? This is some bullshit. You came in here because I bet you she wanted to come and buy the car, but you were like, no, honey, I'm going to go because I'm going to try to negotiate a better price. I just gave you that price in less than 30 seconds, and you're going to fucking tell me that you need to go and ask your wife for fucking permission? If you don't fucking sign this shit, get the fuck out of my office. I was like, holy shit. What the fuck just happened? And the guy was like, let's do this. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, because he questioned his manhood.
Oh yeah. He basically like crushed him into a sale. But it's like, yo, this guy, I didn't understand him really well, but it's just like, he was what we would call in sales like a killer. Somebody who just will do anything and everything. He will step over his mother to make a sale. He will, but he, like, there's not very much of a conscience there, right? It's just you are a killing machine, right? He had no relationship with his children. He had no relationship with friends. He was a loner. This was like well over 20 years ago, and he was an older gentleman, so I'm pretty sure like he's somewhere like unhappy right now because he didn't live a life that was like rewarding. It was just a life of killing, right? And I feel like direct marketing and all that type of stuff creates that. It perpetuates that. In fact, when you talk to a lot of tech founders, they are just so tired of the grind because they have like these quotas of killing. You got to kill. We need you to kill. We need you to close. We need you to go. Like, we need more and more and more. And even when you get more, they ask for more. And it's like, yo, what you're asking for is like practically impossible, because either we need more people, which you don't want to pay for, but also what's really indicative about sales is that your customers aren't giving you more money either. That's the other problem. They're not giving you more money. And in the case of this particular killer, he didn't care that he wasn't getting customers coming back to buy cars, because the machine kept marketing to get more people to come on the lot. So he was like, I don't give a shit. I'll talk to them however I want, because there's always going to be more coming in, because the machine perpetuates that. So I don't care if I ever see them again. He told me this, literally. Like, I don't care if I ever see that asshole again. I was like, damn. You know, but there's that life of killing. And I feel like, again, like 3,000 startups lost it this year because the machine that they chose wasn't killing enough. It wasn't. In fact, I hate this term. When people tell you like you're doing well, they'll be like, you're killing it. And I'm like, whoa, don't put that label on me. Don't tell me I'm killing it, okay? Like, I'm just doing something different. When everybody goes right, I'm going left, okay? So again, like, in marketing, you can choose a lot of different strategies. You can do an event-based strategy. You can do an inbound strategy. You can do an outbound strategy. There's a lot of strategies that you can choose to get business to come to you, okay? But how do you make them feel about you? In fact, some of the ways that you could actually really tell is when, number one, they can't really remember your company that well. You know, you'll have a conversation with them and they'll kind of screw up the name. Okay, you know you didn't make a good connection. When you hear them explain it to a friend and it's not coming off that well, you're like, oh, he's close, right? You could tell you didn't make them feel that great. But also, you see it where it's just like, you know, you transact with them, but they don't really want to tell anybody about it. Like, they just don't share it that much. You know, they don't really get that excited about it. So creating excitement takes work. One of the best new brand strategies that I've seen in a very, very long time is with all this new animation type stuff, okay? Where people are creating like these little animated shorts and videos and things to tell better stories, okay? Now, there's all these AI tools. There's also people on Fiverr that will help you out. I hired somebody to do a little animation video. So I've got one that's out there. But for the cost and for the peace of mind, and I can go to sleep feeling good about my marketing, like, I'm investing in brand. I like going to sleep feeling good. Now, another thing that I'm going to make a prediction on, and I know this is going to sound pretty weird because TikTok seems to be like king in everybody's mind, but I think we're going to see a weird shift in 2024, okay? I don't know exactly when it's going to be or what it's necessarily going to look like, but there's a lot of indication that LinkedIn is going to be like the new king in 2024. I don't know why, okay? I can't really put my pulse on it, but I've been talking to a lot of experts where they're just like, the algorithms are more favorable The reach is better. Even though people use TikTok like Google, right, and search things, right? As far as brand marketing goes, brand placement, brand awareness.
If you have intent data, LinkedIn is the best place to advertise. But you have to have the intent data.
Right.
You have to know exactly who your ICP is.
Right, right. And again, that's going to be a gamble. What is your exact customer? Okay? Because you shouldn't think about it necessarily by age or color or background or whatever. Think about like what are their dreams and then figure it out from there.
Actually, LinkedIn can help you find out who your customer is based on demographics, and then you use LinkedIn as your target.
Well, again, what I am saying about demographics though, demographics do lead to more of a direct marketing strategy. But if you talk to 10 people that you have access to talk to, they like your product, and you can talk to them, you know, get them on a phone, get them on a Zoom call, and, you know, get more into the storytelling aspect to where they talk about what are their dreams, what's that like, talk 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What do you want? Where do you want to be? Where are you going? What does success look like to you in life? Figure some of that stuff out and then start to build around that.
Could you just talk a little bit about with Workb specifically, like how did your go-to-market and brand strategy change from when you founded the company to now by integrating a lot of that like feeling and psychographics?
So I did something really unconventional, which I'm an unconventional guy. So in the tech world, there's this build it fast, ship it fast mentality, you know, iterate later type shit. And because I was a first-time tech founder, number one, I was a little gun shy. I was like, I really don't want to just build something shitty and put it out there. But then also I had to spend a lot of time understanding like my ideal customer. And in my case, it was typically an office manager or a head of HR who was responsible for booking for these employees. The employees had no choice. So I was like, okay, even though they are technically a customer that will experience this business, they are not the decision maker that's going to pull the trigger. So I got to talk to like these folks. But then what was also interesting was that the VP of operation was the one who felt the pain the most because she was complaining to him. So I was like, oh, well, I thought I had it figured out, but then I really need to talk to this person. And once I started talking to like these operational people, that's where I got the scale of the problem where it's like, this lady is technically booking for this project, but this guy's overseeing 50 projects. So he has 50 of her that he's dealing with. And I was like, oh shit, right? So then I started having lunch with this guy. And I'm just like, coming to his office, I brought sandwiches and shit. And, you know, we're hanging out and we're talking. And one of the things that he really changed my mind on was basically from like a security perspective. He changed everything about like how we enroll and how people get assignments. So there's like a travel manager who gets assigned a specific responsibility. And then also he taught me a lot about the back end of how reports have to be given because sometimes they get audited, right? I didn't think about any of that shit. I was like, wow, like I didn't know any of this. But in this particular instance, while I was sitting with him, there was this really smart product guy. His name is Shreyas Dorsey, and he was on the product team for Twitter and Stripe and one other company. I forget what it was. But anyway, he had like this really hot newsletter that I was jumping on really early as I was, trying to teach myself about tech. And he was really diving into like these questions that you should be asking in the client discovery. And one of the questions was about priority. And I talked about this in my last class, one of my other classes. If you're not asking the priority question, you're really kind of screwing yourself, because the priority question sounds like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, if I can solve X problem for you, what's the priority for you to use it? Right? Okay. I asked the question and people were like 7, 9. Okay, that means it's a high priority. So if I build it, you're actually going to use it tomorrow. Like as soon as I hand it to you, you're going to use it. Whereas a lot of people build stuff thinking that it's a priority for them and it's really a low priority, and then they see it in the adoption where it takes months for people to use it. So that really changed a lot talking to the right person. Whereas if I would have just talked to the employees, I would have never gotten anywhere.
But how did you incorporate the dream? I didn't get that.
Okay. So when I'm going to be 1,000% frank with you. The dream conversation didn't happen until this summer. So I'm talking to the VP of Operations for Ames Construction. And I said, I really want to build a brand. Like, I really want to go to like the next level where it's like people are really associating with this brand. And he was like, wow, that's really ambitious. Like, well, what are your plans for that? And I said, well, I need your help. I said, I need to know, like, what is success for you? Like, what are your dreams? Like, what are you going after, So we started talking about, like, a lot of things. I mean, we're talking about, like, 3 conversations that were well over 2 hours each conversation. But we talked about him and his family legacy. We started talking about the future of construction. We started talking about mental health. We started talking about like a ton of, there were so many like topics that we talked about. But one of the things that really stuck out to me was like kind of like a story of inspiration that would get like younger people to get into the trade, and how he wanted to be a part of that bigger story. And we were talking about, well, what got him into construction? And we started, going down this rabbit hole. And I drafted something as part of that conversation to get the content ball rolling. And what made me feel good about like where we were going was like he actually helped with like some of like the words that I ended up using for this little demo. But I'm going to pull it up here on my phone. I wish I could pull it up on the screen just to show you, but
there was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people to see if we could become something more. So when they needed us, we could fight the battles.
so it sounds like movie making, right? It sounds like, but they've never been shown in that light before. They're always the people that are like on the fringes, never talked about, never glorified, never like Like, they know we need them to build all this shit, but they're just like, people don't know that we're needed, right? So I was like, all right, well, let's take a little exercise, a little conversation, let's talk about it, and let's try to pursue it. But again, it's the pursuit. It's the pursuit. It's the journey. Huh? Oh, yeah, I had a firm kind of whip that together. But again, it was storyboarded, you know. So again, here's what I did. I said, brand marketing, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do paid ads. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do flyers. I don't want to be, I said, here's all the things I don't want to do. And then I said, all right, let me go into this brand side now. Let me go into this big, deep branding journey where, again, like, I'm really trying to get some great results here. Now, what are results, right? Like, it can feel like some typical KPIs. You know, you get so many calls, you get so many signups, you get so many to enroll. You can try all that, right? But let's face it. After what I just witnessed in 2023, I'm happy to just fucking be here. I'm happy to still have a business that's open, right? But the work that I do now is actually preparing for the upcycle. Because remember, again, when everything's great, everything starts to go great. It's like a wave, right? You're doing great, you're doing great, you're doing great. Everybody's starting to do great because everything's going back on the upswing. Interest rates, for example, if you look at the history of interest rates, for those of us that witnessed the 80s, right? It takes like 9 years for interest rates to go down. It's like a long, right? I feel bad for people who are like realtors today, because they're like, oh, now's the time to buy. Now's the time. Don't worry about interest rates being high. Just buy. They're screaming because they're just like, listen, I'm going to go out of business if you don't buy. That's all they're telling me. So if your plan is to scream in 2024, you're basically telling people you're going to go out of business if they don't buy. And again, people are really worried about themselves. Any other questions?
I feel like I keep losing you when you say, I don't want to do brand marketing, I don't want to pay attention to product channel, persona only. I want to focus on dreams and feelings. So far, so good.
Yeah.
How do you do that and how to operationalize?
So the challenge is there isn't like a perfect how. Okay, so I want to just, again, talking to a few customers is a great way to like start, right? And it takes experimenting, right? It does take experimenting. So maybe it's telling one story and seeing if it gets some other people, right? Or again, just, but again, it's not about you and it's not about the product. Like, make it less about you. Make it less about the product. Make it more about what success is to them, right? And again, you're going to have to, like, do more work than you've probably ever done before. But that's the great thing about achieving a goal is, like, in fact, I love this quote about winning. Winning at anything is a price that's due daily. And the price goes up and down every day. So I ask myself every day, what did I do today to earn a customer? What did I do today? Did I call somebody? But again, maybe I'm not calling them to sell them. Maybe I'm calling to extract something from them so that I can tell a better story that gets more of them. Right. Does that help?
Yeah, I want to calibrate my question. So,
Okay.
His phase one was product channel and persona. He said he only went after dream once he actually had a business can't start with a dream if no one knows what your product is. Yeah,
Now again, let's take it, if you are just starting a product, okay? If you haven't started yet, man, whoo, shit. That's going to be, that first customer journey is probably the most scariest shit ever, because you're actually surprised when people say yes. Like, I was shocked because I didn't have a product. I didn't have a physical product. I just had a thesis of a product. Whereas some people build a product without that customer, and they're trying to shop it.
And to clarify, it's not my first customer.
Yeah.
And I know you have to find your customer, understand your value proposition.
Right.
My question is, once you have understood the dream,
Right.
and I love what you're proposing,
Right.
going after the psychographic, not the demographic. You
Right.
find a group of people, you understand everybody's dreams. Some of the dreams you cannot cater to. Some
Right.
of the other dreams are very aligned with your product.
Right.
How do you make the jump from selling shoes to selling pursue greatness?
So, okay, yeah. So again, it's really storytelling. That's all it is, really. It's just storytelling, right? Now, how do you tell a story, right? You can write it down. You can draw it out. You can image it out. There's lots of different, you can do, what do you call it, audio only, okay? And maybe it's a combination of all of that.
You're saying own the narrative around the dream.
Right, own the narrative. And again, you may borrow something from somebody. You may, like if you noticed in that little video that I showed, I know I didn't show everybody the best angle, but did you see that kind of like that Marvel entry where looks like a comic book going down that you see in all the Marvel? Yo, we totally, come on, I didn't come up with that. Like, I asked them to put together some sort of feeling of powerful. I was using words to help the visual artist describe what I was looking for. I want something that's like, it feels like you're, and I think what I said in the meeting when I was like, you know, think of like, you know, like comic book people where it's just like, they're just like, you know, they're building up the story of like this team that's powerful together, right? And that's what he put together for me. And I was like, okay, now I don't know if I'm going to run that just yet. I don't know yet. But I'm headed down a rabbit hole that I want to build success on, right? And it's going to take some work. But building a great brand is like a marathon. It's like a 10-year journey, at least. And it's going to take some sacrifices, which I've already sacrificed for 2 years of my life. I've already like given this shit everything I've got. So I'm not going to get worried about 10 years. Like, fuck it. But again, if I have a vision in my head that when people come to Vegas, they're like, oh, what's good in Vegas? Like, what makes Vegas like so great? You know, I want WorkBnB's brand in that conversation. Oh yeah, man, you could get a job there. You could do this. You could be a part of this. You could, right? So to achieve that, it's going to take lots of experimentation.
It's like Apple's here's to the crazy ones.
I'll tell you, that's exactly. Like, in fact, part of storytelling is sometimes talking about what you believe. That's what Apple did.
So in terms of, listening to you, I'm summarizing it as you want to create this success ecosystem that captures people's aspirations and inspirations, and that they will want to contribute maybe with their stories that you
Right.
put on there, which would then,
Right.
kind of like the flyer.
But I'm also just like, I'm looking at the headwinds. Like, when I remember '08, it wasn't great for a long time. It didn't get better to what, like 2012? Do you remember every year was like '09? Everybody was like, oh, 2010 is going to be better. No, it wasn't. Oh, 2011 is going to be great. No, it wasn't. 2012 is finally the year. Like with their cycles, like they can last a while, right? So why do we think we're special that it's only going to be like 1 year that's going to be like not that great? Like, nah, like the pandemic didn't help. Honestly, I felt like if the pandemic didn't happen, maybe the ride would have been cooler for a little bit longer. But we can't control nature, right? So shit happened. That was pretty disruptive. Okay. We still have global conflicts. We still have this that we're dealing with. We have that when you're dealing with like 10 or more things, right? That's usually not that great of a sign. Right? So, and I'm an optimist. I'm like one of the type of people that will probably, if you're a pessimist, I would piss you off because I'm typically an optimistic kind of person, right? And I feel like in a lot of ways, I'm in a really great place because I decided on this brand strategy back in the summertime. So I'm already 6 months into building a brand.
I like your new strategy. Last month we were having a conversation about going on the road, and now that I'm seeing you write this out, you can actually take that road trip and turn it into another way to tell those customer stories and include them in that process to kind of build up that cult following
Right.
as you're on the road, and kind of like find your social media channel, whether it be Instagram,
Whatever it is.
or TikTok, or like whatever that looks like, even Pinterest, which everyone seems to forget about, but Pinterest is really good. Pinterest and LinkedIn, to me, are going to be those top social media channels.
And if it works and you're here and you're alive at the end of 2024, you win. In a down cycle, it's about living. It's about being unstoppable. Like all the shit hit the fan and I'm still ticking, right? But it's really your customers that are the ones that helped you win. They're the ones that paid, right? And that's really what we're really getting to the genesis of is the companies that shut down this year, their customers stopped paying. They thought they had it in the bag. They were like, oh, I had these people for like 4 years. And all of a sudden, boom, 2023, they stopped their subscriptions and they're like, oh shit, the cliff. Oh my God, the churn just went, whew. What the hell? What are we, And boom, shutting down. I mean, it was to the point where I was seeing like 5 to 8 shutdown notices from founders on LinkedIn. Because you know how like you read something and then the algorithm is like, oh, you like reading this? All of a sudden it was sending me every single one of those. I was like, oh shit. There was this company raised, it's in my space, real estate. It was called, oh God, what was it called? Zeus Living. And they had a really slick website, slick logos, slick everything. They were doing housing for remote workers. So if you were a remote worker traveling the country, you would try to find houses through Zeus. And they would have like these really beautiful curated places and all this type of stuff. But what happened? Employers were like, hey, fuck you, come back to work. Fuck your remote work. Sorry, I have a fake tooth. You didn't see that recording? Take that out. Cut that out. Took an elbow to my face, so I have a flipper in right now. But anyway, okay. So Zeus raised like 100 million. They raised 50 million from Airbnb, and this was like over a 4 or 5 year period. They didn't sell. They just shut down. Like, they couldn't even sell the company. And I thought about that long and hard. And I was like, because they didn't have a brand. Zeus didn't mean anything to anybody. In fact, if you reverse engineer Whole Foods selling to Amazon, Amazon was willing to pay $900 million more because on the balance sheet, when Whole Foods said, we're going to sell you, they added $900 million under the term brand. It was a line item that said brand. Because you're buying the brand asset, the logo, the name, the feeling, everything associated with Whole Foods, you're going to pay $900 million for. So I think it came out to almost like a $3 billion transaction that Amazon paid, but they said, yes, we will pay it because we feel like the brand is worth it. And Zeus couldn't even sell their brand. Nobody would buy it. So that's what I'm obsessed about. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I know how to raise a little bit of money. I've been pretty good at it. I'm not saying I'm an expert yet, but I feel like I'm on a pathway there. I'm learning a lot about product, which is really fucking hard. All the engineers and cybersecurity and shit that I have to be as a new tech founder. It's really challenging, but at least I have some great technical co-founders that are saving my ass right now. But as far as distribution goes, this is what I want to be like amazing at. Like, I hope one day, years from now, this kind of conversation will be looked at as like one of the beginnings of like a pinnacle in my career where people will say, this guy from Vegas built one of the next great brands because he wanted to not only survive a downturn, but he wanted to thrive generations to come, right? And that really has a lot to do with thinking well past me and what I'm going to live, right? Like if I'm going to pass down my company to my kids and my great-great-grandkids and all that type of stuff, like the brand I create today is going to be the brand that they inherit in the future. Any questions as we wrap this up? Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys.